So unity, that's what we're going to talk about today. All throughout our lives, we've been in different groups with different people. And we've been in groups where, in school, co-workers, sports teams, support groups, there were probably people that we liked and people we didn't really like, right? If we've been honest with ourselves, there were probably a lot of people who we just couldn't stand because they were just too much trouble to deal with. But no matter who we've come across, we know that conflict always come up when you have simply two or more people. I mean, unity is not easy. Sometimes we think there is unity, but actually that's not the case. Commonly, people mistake uniformity for unity. Uniformity means to have one party, one person change to be like the other so that there can be peace or agreement. That means you need to believe the same things that I do. You need to like the same food. You need to have the same hobby. You need to dress like me, walk, talk, and act like me. But even if everyone is the same, that actually is not unity. Unity is also not void of conflict. Differences cause conflict, right? We have different habits, different words or behaviors that are culturally acceptable. We have different ideas and experiences. We like different drinks, we like different food. We have different tastes even when it comes to decorating our church building and the different songs that we like to sing. And in most of our circles, if we've been there long enough, we settle into what I call an equilibrium state. You see, we kind of behave a certain way at first, but then we look at each other, we feel each other out, and we readjust. Whatever it takes for there to be peace in the group, we just do it. But deep down, we know that doesn't mean that we have unity. We throw the word unity around a lot in school, political campaigns, even in church. But what is unity? And what is the purpose of unity? And how exactly does it become a reality? I believe for the body of Christ, God is giving us a higher calling. I believe unity is the only worthy reflection for the children of God. So I want to suggest, let's not assume we understand what that means. Let's not assume that we have it all together. And let's explore what Paul has to say in Ephesians about this. So in Ephesians 4, verses 1 through 6, can we read it together? As a prisoner for the Lord, then, I urge you to live a life worthy of the calling you have received. Be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love. Make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. There is one body and one Spirit, just as you were called to one hope when you were called. One Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, who is over all and through all and in all. In Ephesians, Paul actually divides the book into two halves. So the first 3 chapters, he kind of lays the foundation of the gospel. And then the last 3 chapters, he kind of gives the church some practical guidelines for them to follow. So Paul specifically mentions the need for Ephesians to deal with the differences between Jews and Gentiles. Now, just like us, there's always tension between them about who's better, who's worse, even in the church. In chapter 2, he says, as for you, both Jews and Gentiles, you were dead in your transgressions and sins, in which you used to live when you followed the ways of this world. So there you have it. You want to compare? Well, here's dead, and here's dead. Who's better? You tell me. Well, he comes from a family of believers, but she has a higher education. But he committed this sin, but she committed that sin. But guys, it doesn't matter. We were all sinners. We were just as dead as the next person. We had no hope, no way to be in unity with a holy God. And with that in mind, Paul says, live a life worthy of the calling you have received. So what is this calling? Note that this calling is something that we already have. It's not something new. We already have it. Remember, we just said that we all used to be dead. But because of this great love for us, because of his great love for us, God, who is rich in mercy, made us alive with Christ even when we were dead in transgressions. It is by grace you have been saved. And that is the gospel. God united us to himself through Christ because of his love for us. These are the truths. God chose us to be holy and blameless in his sight, which means that he forgave us. He adopted us into his family through Christ because he loves us. So our calling is eternal unity with God as his children, as his beloved children. Our calling is eternal unity with God as his beloved children. So there's an image that came to me this morning as I was thinking about this. I just want to share that. It really kind of shows the situation that we were in. You know, before Christ, we're kind of like these babies, right? You see these babies all around. We're kind of like these week-old or month-old babies who can't really do anything yet. All right, like Joshua is 6 months old right now. He can't crawl. All right, and for me as a father, if I don't go over to him, all right, there's no way for him to get to me. He just physically can't do it. It doesn't matter if he kicks or screams or cries. I have to actually go over. It's only possible for him to get to me if I decide, okay, I'm going to actually walk over to him. And then reach out my hand, extend my arms to him, and offer to pick him up. And actually, recently, he just learned to lift his arms up to, ask for us to carry him. But, that's really the picture of what it's like to be chosen and carried by the Father. And that's always been and will always be God's plan and desire. All we have to do is celebrate those truths and live each day as if those things are true in our lives. So look how Paul starts with, as a prisoner for the Lord then, I urge you to live a life worthy of the calling you have received. A few things we can notice here. As a prisoner for the Lord, right? That kind of sets the tone, right? Like a prisoner. He could have been friendly or easygoing as a brother, right? That's what he is, right? You can say as a brother, but nope. He says as a prisoner for the Lord. So I think it sounds serious. I think he's not taking lightly what he's about to say. And so I think we probably shouldn't either. In addition, he probably used the word prisoner for the Lord because at this moment he was under house arrest. And he's writing this letter from his house arrest. So there's a certain level of concern and sense of urgency when he writes this letter. He wants to convey to us that, I'm in prison, but I'm writing this letter to you because it's so important. I'm living out this life for the Lord, and it's so worth it. It's so worth it. So please, just listen to what I have to say. Now, worthy is an interesting word. The Greek word for worthy is axios, or however you pronounce it. I don't really know. That is also the word for balancing scale. So a balancing scale, how does it work? To balance a scale, what's on one side has to equal what's on the other. And so in other words, the lives we live are supposed to match the calling that we have received. And so as sons and daughters of God, our words and action do not define who we are, but they are evidence of who we are. Let me repeat that. As sons and daughters of God, our words and actions do not define who we are, but they're evidence of who we are. Our lives are to show the unity to which we have been called. So how do we match the calling we received and attain unity? I believe the key is to remind ourselves who we really are. We often operate out of this false sense of identity. We have a distorted view of ourselves, and our false identities keep us from having the right perspective, even in our most noble efforts. We fall short because we fail to realize that unity is actually not created by us. All right? Unity, we think it's up to us, but really, unity is created by God. God is the one that created unity, and we are the ones to maintain it. It's as if God is like the ultimate gardener, right? And he created this garden called unity. And he calls us to be the caretakers. So he teaches us how to find good soil. He teaches us how to water, to protect the plant. But we actually don't have to give actual life to the plants, all right? That's impossible for us. But God actually did the impossible part. And he just calls us to take care of the plants. And so likewise, we maintain unity by living as children of God. And we take our positions as sons and daughters by being what Paul tells us, being humble and gentle, patient, loving, so that we reflect God and what he has done. The good news is that the God who saved us, is the God who continues to empower us to live out the life that he calls us to. So we don't create unity, but we maintain it by being first humble and gentle. Now notice the key word here, and. We're called to be humble and gentle. You can't be humble but not gentle. And you can't be gentle without being humble, right? They go hand in hand. When we don't agree with someone without humility and gentleness, all kinds of things come out of our mouths. Right? We can't control ourselves. We blurt out whatever comes to mind. And you know what? Both sides get hurt. Both sides, we just dig ourselves deeper and deeper into a hole that neither of us wanted to get into in the first place. Both persons lose. But when we're humble and gentle, we're not harsh towards others. We don't look to harm other people in that case. But instead, we try to point people towards Jesus. We try to point people towards the heart of Jesus. Because we know Jesus is welcoming. Jesus brings life and peace. So people usually respond to aggression with more aggression, right? And more aggression, and then more aggression, and more aggression. But when we respond with humility and gentleness, people don't want to fight with you. People don't want to fight with us. Because they know that we actually care about their thoughts and feelings. Part of being humble means admitting we don't know it all. It means admitting when we're wrong and saying sorry. I mean, it takes a lot to say sorry, right? But it's crucial to our relationships. I mean, how many times have you had an exchange with someone and either one of you or both of you just got really heated? Eventually, the argument ends, but feelings were hurt. And sometimes you don't even have a resolution to the argument. In an argument, usually both sides probably have something to apologize for. When we don't learn to do that, though, we allow resentment and bitterness to build up and linger. And that continues to affect our relationship with others. But as children of God, we can be secure to know that it's okay that we made a mistake. Right? It's okay that we made a mistake. And we are able then to learn to say sorry. If you're humble, your words will be gentle. If a brother or sister catches you in sin, wouldn't you want them to restore you gently? So likewise, if we catch a brother or sister in sin, we ought to restore them gently as well. Not that we're morally better because we were both dead, but that we desire for the person to truly experience the peace of God once again. And we're all capable of messing up, so we really need each other to build us back up. Humility is also to consider others above ourselves. We are called to serve each other humbly. But that's not what the flesh wants to do. I mean, who wants to serve other people when we can serve ourselves, right? But I think those of us who are parents, those of us who have kids, probably have a taste of what it means to serve humbly, right? What is one of the things we do as parents when our kids were just little babies? What do we do? Clean their poop. Changing diapers, right? So most parents will tell you that they hate doing it, but they still do it. I kind of dread it now because I'm just always so tired. But you know, when we first had to change diapers for Joshua, you can ask Jean. Like, I was so excited. All right, I was I even celebrated when he peed on me for the first time. I know I'm weird, but I'm sure some of you are just as weird. Or not. But you know, it was because of this genuine love I had for him, right? This love that was passed from the Father to me. It's not like I'm any great person, but it's because I had love of the Father that I naturally had Joshua's best interest in mind. Because do you know how helpless a baby is, right? Joshua just turned 6, right? And he can't really do much other than eat, sleep, eat some more, sleep, play with some toys. Thank you, all you guys who got toys for us. But, and he, like I said before, he can't crawl yet, right? And he can't really do anything for me right now. But it's not about what he can do for me right now, right? I don't second guess whether I should serve him. I will serve him anyway. So most people may hear that and think, well, that's your baby. So obviously you should and will take care of him and serve him. Then you're right. And I believe all of us should look to serve each other with humility and gentleness because we're all part of the same family of God. We are to expect nothing in return. And I thank you because I truly feel that kind of love from a lot of us here, from a lot of you here. We don't create unity, but we maintain it also by being patient. So part of being patient means we don't jump to conclusions about people or what they mean when they say a certain thing. We often make assumptions about others without realizing that we start forming these flawed opinions about them. And to prevent that, it requires us to communicate, right? It requires us to communicate with people who communicate differently from us. Just because we think we said something doesn't mean that that's what the other person heard. It takes time to get familiar with people and understand them. Like, after all these years, if Jean says the dishes are not clean, I know what that means now. But seriously though, I bring this example not to point out a husband's shortcoming, but to point out how assumptions and communication are so vital to relationships and how it affects us. It's not just simply do the dishes, right? In the past, that could have meant it's your turn to do the dishes. Why am I doing it all the time? Right? Why am I doing everything? And there could have been a whole slew of arguments following that. But now it can mean, I know you're busy and tired, but I just really need some rest right now. Can you please take care of the dishes? And so yes, all right? But do we respond perfectly to each other all the time? Of course not. But we learn each other, we start understanding each other, and we learn to communicate so that we can work in a much better way together. Being patient also means to accept it when things are not going according to our plan. It means that we have to be long-tempered and that it may be inconvenient for us for a really long time. We get anxious or frustrated at people, at situations, and we want to take control over situations. But we must be careful not to impose our will and our expectations on other people. Love is patient, and Jesus continues to be patient with us. And so we can learn to be patient with others through love. We are to surrender to God's timing and sovereignty so that we can learn to love each other and seek what God has planned for each one of us. Very similarly, we don't create unity, but we maintain it by bearing with one another in love. I want us to be careful here. There is a world of difference between bearing with someone and bearing with someone in love. There are ways to prevent conflict if we want to. We could avoid each other. We could ignore our differences. But that's not sustainable, nor is it what God calls us to. God is not telling us to just tolerate each other. God had a higher calling for us. Bearing with one another in love means possibly being burdened for a long time. Being burdened by others, but still continuing to love them. It means bearing with other people's weaknesses. It's loving them even though they've wronged us, time and time again. And this kind of love is not dependent on whether the person changes or when the person changes. It doesn't give up on the person. And so absent of these things, any of these things, we would have disunity. We may have experienced some form of unity in groups that we've been part of, but we probably have experienced a lot more disunity. One clear thing is that to have unity, the people in the same group, in that group, needs to have the common goal, common purpose. Paul emphasizes the oneness we ought to have in verses 4 and 5. One body, one spirit, one hope, one Lord, one faith, one baptism. All right. Here is a basketball jersey. Okay? Now, I've played basketball since I was 8, and I've played with a lot of people who were very unselfish, but also a lot of people who were very selfish. All right. Now, in a jersey, usually you have in the back there's a number, and then you have the name of each individual over here. I mean, obviously, like I wasn't very rich, so I didn't even get that. But in the front, you have the name of the team in big, bold letters. All right, and that's who you're supposed to represent. That's the team that you're on. And what you do will show people what the team is about. It will show what the team character is. It will show the purpose that you have as a team. Now, a popular challenge that coaches say to their players is, are you going to play for the name in the front of the jersey or the one in the back? All right? It can be cliche, but it's a fundamental challenge that each of us need to check ourselves. If everyone has a different goal, then those goals can be in conflict. And we probably wouldn't work together very well. So I ask you, who do you represent? You see, we're more than just a team, right? Whether you're on a youth level, collegiate level, or professional level, like a team can have members come and go. But for us, we're born into the family of God. When we're in, we're in. The Spirit is our guaranteeing deposit. He dwells in us so that we can live in one spirit. We are His. Our lives are no longer our own. Christ is the head, we are the body, one body. How can we have one body but two spirits? But we are to live lives that reflect the work of the one and only Spirit. Lives that reflect the unity that God has granted each one of us. The unity is the only reflection for the children of God. I want to give us 3 practical suggestions to grow with the body. 1, we talk about it every week. Beethoven just talked about it. Visit our encounter group. If you can't, at least meet up with someone. Meet up with brother, sister. Because God gave us each other for a purpose. Right? We're not meant to live this life alone. And I can't tell you how much, like one encounter group where, like I can't tell you how much one encounter group spent with someone, like in digging into their lives, and just sharing and praying together. How that brings you so much closer to one person than saying hi to that person for like 6 months. All right. In small group, we deal with our identities, we deal with our brokenness, our struggles, and we celebrate our victories and joys. We help bring each other towards Jesus. And when we encounter Jesus, He allows us to experience what it's like to be our true self. 2, pray for someone in this family each week. Most of us go back to work on Monday, or some of us even Sunday afternoons. And it's easy for us to forget each other during the week. Out of sight, out of mind. But if we start praying for others, we will start remembering each other in our minds, in our hearts. I know some of us do that, and I encourage you to keep doing it. It's a great way to submit ourselves to God and to develop a greater love for one another. If you haven't, try it and see what God does with your prayer. 3rd, don't just pray by yourself, but come and pray with us. 2 weeks ago, when we first had to move into this room, it was interesting to me that the week before, the leaders had a meeting and we decided that it was important for us to pray together. Finally, right? I mean, I know, it's really nothing structured, right? Just 10, 15 minutes before our Sunday gatherings. So the past 2 weeks, and today is the 3rd time, after we set up everything, right, after we took care of all the logistics, a bunch of us would get together on the side and we would just pray. And honestly, it's not, I'll tell you, it's not one of those times when, a few of us, like a couple of us just pray some generic prayer and nothing happens and then we move on. It wasn't like that. We declared God's power and presence over us and in this space. And we pray for the word to transform us that day, for faith, for strength, to fight against the battle against the enemy. And there was a bond that was built, like we were on a mission together. We were assured that God was present and was working among us. And He still is. And that's the kind of unity that we desire. When we seek God together, He answers. But let's bring it back to us as individuals. And I'm going to ask the worship team to come up. You see, this passage talks about the body, the whole. But we all know that it is us, the individuals, that make up the body. Even though I just made some suggestions of what we can do, all those things are really the second step. All right. We start at our own hearts, which affects our motives, which affects our behaviors. Now, I don't want to make it seem like we're being awful to each other, because we're not. I think as a family, we're doing fairly well. But as Paul warned the Ephesians, we must take caution that we don't settle for fairly good as a family, and that we make every effort to grow in unity. Like, aren't you tired of being just fairly good? Before we launched Envision last year, I prayed for a greater vision for us as a family. The vision of the family of Christ that would include people who are different from me, and also for the desire and strength to pursue that. Now, I'm nowhere close to perfect in that regard, but I've seen some amazing changes. I've seen some of those prayers become reality in myself and some of us in the past year and a half. We just celebrated Christmas, and then the New Year's coming. In case you missed it, our theme for 2019 is Advance Together. Maybe you've given it some thought, maybe you haven't. But imagine what it would be like to have humility, to have the humility of Christ when we look at our brothers and sisters. Imagine the love that we would feel, that we would experience together in this fellowship of believers. We would be spurring each other on and not tearing each other down. We would bring to the forefront the supernatural transformation of Christ on his children. We would show the world that Jesus is alive and well, working in us. We will see that unity is the only worthy reflection for the children of God. So I ask you, how will you take your position as a son or a daughter of God so that you can keep the unity of the body?